Hey everybody, it's Chase with AVA Pop Culture again, and today we are here to talk about a hot topic. I'm going to talk about why this release is not really red like you're hearing about, and why this release and others like it are not really dark. In fact, I'm going to tell you there is no such thing as a 4K that is too dark. I am here to help you fix the problem. That is going to be with your settings. We are going to dive into 4K settings. I'm going to give you all of my knowledge from years of editing, color correcting, color grading, restoring films, all of that stuff. And oh yes, by the way, being paid to calibrate and color set people's televisions. So we're going to do all that we can today to make sure that you get the most out of all of your 4Ks and your 4K TVs. So pop that tape in. I got you. Let's go do this. All right, so the first thing I want to do is apologize because I'm having to stand up. I have injured myself. I can't sit a lot right now. And I have been up at my TV for a lot of this video that I've already recorded. So the audio is going to be off just a little bit. I apologize. It's just I can't, the mic is way over there. I don't have a way to move it over here. But I wanted to do this video for you guys because so many people ask me about my settings on my OLED TV. And I'm gonna show you everything I do, because so many of you, I believe, we're jumping to the conclusion that the 4K isn't good or that there's a problem with the 4K. And then I go and I ask questions, and a lot of you are using just out-of-the-box settings. Just, oh, it's on filmmaker mode with Dolby Vision. We're going to dive into that because those things, they're not what you think. They're not what you think. They're not cure-alls. Okay, so let's start. We're going to start there, but one thing I'm going to bring up foremost, because I addressed this on my live, we're going to talk about Roadhouse, the 4K that has been released that for a while now, so 2022, from Vinegar Syndrome. It's one of the best 4Ks to be released. Let's just be honest. It's one of the best to be released. And now Arrow has taken this same 4K restoration and scan, and they simply added Dolby Vision to it. And I addressed that I saw some comparisons to the Arrow and the Vinegar Syndrome version. I know there's a Cape Light version. I don't have it. I haven't seen it. And some people have told me that it is the same as the Vinegar Syndrome one, and they're getting this extremely red color on Patrick Swayze. We're going to address that in a couple of parts. One, you shouldn't be, because it's not there. And had it been there for the past several years, Vinegar Syndrome would have never put it out. I've got some side-by-side pictures. There was one channel, and I'm not naming anybody because I saw this on several, but there was one channel that had a side-by-side of the Vinegar Syndrome 4K of Roadhouse and the Arrow. And on the Vinegar Syndrome, Patrick Swayze, the people in it look like bright red lobsters. I mean, just over the top, bright red. And then the Arrow looks like it's corrected it. Well, there could be a couple of reasons for that. But first, I'm just going to tell you guys, I'm putting up my pictures too of the same scenes with nothing done. I'm just pausing and taking a picture of my TV. My color looks flawless. It looks flawless on that same Vinegar Syndrome release. I'm not seeing the red lobsters. I'm not seeing it. So that brings me into what Dolby Vision does. Dolby Vision, you guys, Dolby Vision is not a color grade. It's not a color grade in the traditional sense. Dolby Vision is tone mapping. Dolby Vision is laid over the top of HDR color grades. Once your correction's done, your grade's done, your HDR grade is done. Dolby Vision is metadata. Constantly, it's laid on top of it. It is constantly refreshing metadata in order to maintain the optimal levels of that high dynamic range color gamut. That's what it does. It's not a color changer in and of itself. Think of it more as a color maintainer. So what it does is if the 4K you're watching is corrected and graded perfectly, and your TV isn't shit and it's set up correctly, Dolby Vision doesn't have much to do. That's why sometimes Dolby Vision doesn't seem to make a difference, doesn't look like it's making a difference, because it may not have anything to do. If it's tone mapped correctly and it's colored correctly and your TV's set correctly, Dolby Vision kind of sits on the sidelines. It doesn't have a ton to do. So in this case, maybe this person or these people who are seeing very red versions of Patrick Swayze and red colors in Roadhouse, maybe their televisions are not set properly, or their players are not set properly. A lot of players, UB820 has a lot that you can tweak with it too. Maybe they are not set properly, and Dolby Vision, the addition of Dolby Vision, is tone mapping to correct the shortcomings of their setup, in which case it would do that. Otherwise, I got no explanation, because y'all, it don't look like that. I'm not like calling anybody anything, or it does not look like that. I've got simple shots here. It doesn't look like that, but maybe that's why. Maybe their settings are off. I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt, and Dolby Vision is tone mapping the shit out of it to fix it for them. Totally possible. So, but I had so many people, I was upset because I had so many people saying that they had sold their Roadhouse copy, that they were going to buy the Arrow copy because everybody's telling them how bad this copy is all of a sudden. And that's just not true. And I don't like that kind of misinformation. You need to be, I take what I do here very seriously, because this is how I make my living out in the world too. It's not just here on YouTube. So I'm not going to tell you something looks a wrong way or a different way if it doesn't. I'm going to give you my knowledge to the best of my knowledge, to the best of my education, to the best of my experience, to the best of my ability. And I'm going to make sure that my shit is set up right before I do it. There's a reason I won't talk about audio right now. I don't have the proper audio setup or Atmos setup to talk about it. So I'm not going to tell you about it until I do. When I do, I will. But I'm not gonna tell you something wrong on purpose or out of accident, like out of lack of knowledge. I'm gonna make sure I've done everything that I can. Nobody's perfect. I'm not saying that. But this does not look like that, y'all. And I'm not saying that. I right now would tell you, if you don't own the 4K at all, why not you can get the Arrow version. You're at least gonna get a slipcover. You're gonna get the same scan with Dolby Vision. So people are like, well, you just hate Arrow and you love Vinegar Syndrome. That's absolute bullshit. I love Arrow. Arrow was ranked as my #1 boutique last year. So I love Arrow. I don't have their copy. I may get their copy now just to compare it myself. But I would tell you to get either one. I don't think you can go wrong either way. But at least with the Arrow version now, you're going to get a slipcover and all that kind of stuff. So that's that elephant in the room. This is a beautiful copy. This is a beautiful 4K. End of story. Now, another thing I hear often, very, very often with 4Ks is the 4K is too dark. Every time I hear that, my soul dies a little. Because, and this is actually on my top 25 4Ks of all time. And then I heard people say, oh, this is dark. This is crap. There should be no such thing really as a 4K that's too dark. Why, you ask? And we're going to go to my TV. We're going to cover my settings. We're going to show you stuff, all kinds of things. We're going to do it all. A lot of you have been asking for this video. There is so much information contained in this disc. You can push it to the breaking point, and it won't crack. You can lighten, darken, and everything else, and color adjust, all that stuff to get the look that you want. And you say, well, I shouldn't have to do that. I should have one setting. There is not going to be one setting to rule them all. the way they lit and filmed this movie and the color grade that they did, and but particularly the way the cameras they used, the lenses they used, the film stock they used, how they lit it, that is going to be very different than that's going to be very different than the Searchers, which is universally one of the best 4Ks. And why do we hear all the time, Westerns look so great in 4K? You know why? They're big, bright, lit spaces. Okay, so cameras have all the light they need. It's a very bright film. So when it's films, and we're going to get it, this is going to lead me into filmmaker mode. Filmmaker mode is not the cure-all fix. That's a start point. That's a start point. Because filmmaker mode essentially just grayscales, balances the color. That's it. And it was created to really, the first thing it's supposed to do is get rid of all that motion fix, all that bullshit AI stuff, all that kind of stuff. It gets rid of all that, the judder suppression. It gets it to where it's supposed to look like what they shot. Not that soap opera effect. It gets rid of all that kind of stuff. But then it essentially bleeds the color back to even. Why does it do that? Because filmmaker mode, here's what else people miss. Filmmaker mode was designed for you to watch it how the filmmaker intended. How is it all calibrated, color treated, all that, especially on older films to start with? It's not for 4K television delivery. It was for theater. So if you go and actually look up filmmaker mode and go to the website, go look it up and go to a website where you get frequently asked questions, all this kind of stuff. Filmmaker mode is designed to be optimized when you are in a completely closed in, completely dark environment with a projector that is over a certain amount of lumens. Okay, so it's basically, it will be brighter in a completely pitch black enclosed climate or a situation with the luminance jacked up, with the brightness jacked up to a certain, because you're going to have a laser projector or whatever else. That is when filmmaker mode is optimized, and it would be bright enough because you got a bright ass projector in a pitch black room. You are almost never going to watch it in a pitch black room. You are not going to watch it with a projector that is that bright in a pitch black room. You are going to watch it on a digital television, a 4K television that either has a backlight or self-illuminating dots. It's not going to get as bright as that. And the ambient light in your room is going to mess with it. So it's not going to be the same. Do you understand? So like putting it on filmmaker mode is not just, that's how it's supposed to look. No, that's how it's supposed to look if you're in a pitch black room with an extremely bright projector. So some movies default look good to that. Good in that way, and you don't have to do anything else to them. Why? It's not because the restoration is better. It's because of how they shot it, and it's because of how they lit it. So if you've got a Western like this that's bright, by the way, the weak points in this is when they shot day for night. There you go. So when you watch a Western, they're almost universally bright, sun-drenched deserts, all this kind of stuff. Tons of light. So it's never going to be too dark. It was always light. It was meant to be seen light. So it actually had to be toned down. So now you're fine with it on filmmaker mode. Whereas a movie like this, it was supposed to be dark, moody, creepy, people moving in and out of dark light, people moving in and out of moonlight. That's how it was supposed to look. Okay? It's very high contrasty. So the things that make why do horror movies tend to stand out as really good, but then people can also crap on them? They're the end of each spectrum. Why? Because they're designed to be very contrasty. Lots of difference between the dark and the lights. That's why high dynamic range and a good restoration can make horror movies look so good, because that's how they were shot. But it goes hand in hand with their doom, because if you slap it on filmmaker mode, it takes out a lot of that contrast that's supposed to be there. And then it just kind of flattens and darkens the whole image. And you actually lose some of the ability of your high dynamic range color grade. Because a high dynamic range means a large range from the brightest bright to the darkest dark. You've got a whole much more palette in the middle. So there you go. If you flatten it out with just filmmaker mode, that you don't tweak it all and you leave it on the basics, it's going to take away a lot of that contrast, a lot of that difference between the brights and the darks. It's going to muddy the picture, dim the picture, make the picture look dark. So what do we do in that situation to get the most out of our TVs? Because it can't be a one-size-fits-all, guys. Think about it. These are filmed completely different. They're graded completely differently. Different film stocks, different cameras, different lenses. How could you think there would be one TV setting to rule them all? That's not fair. That's not fair. Putting the same setting on there and expecting both of these movies to look the same is ridiculous. You can't do it. You don't want your Friday the 13th to look like The Searchers. So how do we fix this? We're going to go over to the TV. I'm going to go through it all. There are I have settings for Dolby Vision. I have settings for stuff without HDR, like Blu-rays. And then I have for HDR10 settings. I have 4 settings under each category. Okay, I've got a filmmaker setting, I've got a cinema home setting, I've got a standard setting and a vivid setting under each category. And I have, like, everyone started at the base and then I tweak. We're going to go over the most used, because what happens is almost 99.9% of the time, one of these settings will be right for whatever you're watching. So, and once you set it one time, you can just pick whichever one looks the best for your flavor. Some of it is your taste, all right? So, but I want to make sure you get the most out of your TV. So, this is not universal. Your rooms are also going to vary. All this could be as a starting point. Your TVs are going to vary. If you got an LG TV, this is probably going to help you the most. But if you have an OLED, this can kind of get you started, and you can see what I am saying here. Tweak it. Use a starting point and go from there. We're going to have the settings on the TV, so pay attention. I'll try to put them down in the comments too, or the description, one of the two. I'll try to get my settings, but they will be on the TV. You're going to see the difference. It's going to be a little bit longer video, but a lot of you have been asking for this. And then feel free to ask me any questions down here, because I want, before we go attack the films, you got to make sure your shit's set right. At least give them a fair fight, benefit of the doubt. So let's go over here and do it, and I'll get back to you in just a second. Now I'm going to show you, this is a very bright and right now empty room as I wait on new furniture to come in. So this is a very bright room. There are windows everywhere. Can at least make this a little darker. But this is how bright it is. User settings under Dolby Vision and cinema mode. And now if I turn it, so you can see that is my cinema mode user settings. If I turn it to filmmaker mode, that's what it looks like. Let's zoom in here. Filmmaker mode, user settings mode on cinema. And my filmmaker mode has been altered. These are user settings on the filmmaker mode, because that's just a starting point. So that's filmmaker mode with my settings. Cinema mode with my settings. Standard mode with my settings. Vivid mode with my settings. So I have 4 settings under Dolby Vision alone. So I end up using cinema mode and filmmaker mode the most. So here we go. Let me get this off the screen because it does affect the light on the rest of the screen. look. So this is on my mode, my cinema mode that I have altered. I don't even have my pixel brightness turned all the way up. I could turn my pixel brightness up, and you could make this even a little bit brighter on any of them. I try to keep it around 88, 85, somewhere in that range. There's no problem with it going all the way up. Let's see here. Now, that's what filmmaker mode does to it. Watch the reds, because filmmaker mode is meant to balance to a grayscale, to a middle ground that you can start with, that they started with, a neutral color palette meant to be seen in the dark. And this is what people don't understand about filmmaker mode. It is meant to be used to be seen in the complete pitch black dark, the way you would see it in a movie theater. The chances of you seeing it in complete pitch black in your house with the lumens and the brightness and everything else of a major movie theater screen are slim and none. Slim and none. So that's just a starting point. And too many people turn on filmmaker mode and just think that's supposed to fix it all. And if it has Dolby Vision, that's supposed to fix it. Dolby Vision is not a color grade. Dolby Vision is a tone mapping metadata that is put over the top of your color grade to maintain in a constantly refreshing rate the consistency of colors in the high dynamic range color grade. So it's not it's to basically bail you out if you're shitty at setting your color or your TV sucks. That's what it's for. So let me turn this back around. There's filmmaker mode with my alterations. Okay, it would be more bland than that. And then there is cinema mode. There is my standard mode. There is vivid settings, which makes this pop off the screen, right? So I set 4 different settings. And at the end, I will show you guys my individual settings. Filmmaker mode. And now I will still tweak this every now and then. Let me show you. So color. Where are we at on color here? We're only at 82 depth color. You can easily, especially if you want to see reds and bloods pop out, you could crank that all the way up if you want to. That's not going to be very realistic. So I keep around somewhere between 85 to 90 is going to be your sweet spot. Play around with it in there. Keep this in mind. If you have Friday the 13th from 1980, do you think they meant for the same color aesthetic, the feel, the grading, the lighting, all that stuff as like Seven Samurai by Kurosawa or Titanic or The Terminator or The Matrix or anything like that? The Last Samurai, Jaws? No, they all lit, colored, all that stuff for different movies. So why would you think there would be one color, one setting to rule them all? It's not going to happen. So we're going to leave this about 88. And where we're going, we don't need roads. So here is my color settings. I don't really mess with anything. There is a little fine tuning I did in here. You see where it says color adjustment low? It says adjust color and saturation automatically to make the image brighter and more vivid. I will put that on low or off. That is so that it kind of catches anything that maybe was poor, possibly in the source material or anything else. But you don't ever want to turn that too high because you don't want it to be done artificially. White balance. Here's your biggest difference between what happens with filmmaker mode and other modes. With filmmaker mode, this is going to basically be balanced to warm in. It's going to try to bleed out color. It's going to try to bleed out color to make it a neutral look. So it's going to go down, and then it's going to add a little warmth to get out the blue light, the brightness. Um, Opposite, when you're on vivid, it's heavy blue light, heavy cool, because we read that as brighter. So, and then cinema mode, I basically, we'll see that in a minute. So I tweak my white balance here on the color temperature anywhere between 24 and 34 on filmmaker mode. So as you can see, like the higher the numbers go, the warmer you get. Closer back to 0, the cooler you get, and essentially brighter and more colors will come in. The more you go back to 0 and up the other side. And I mean, I get it. I'm recording my screen, so it could be hard to see. But I don't go cold leaning here. I keep this one around 24 to 34 on my filmmaker mode. I like a little warmer lean here, and that's closer to what its normal setting is. So none of this. This I do select here. You can see it's just where it adjusts from. This almost has no bearing on this in filmmaker mode. It just will self-correct the points of luminance, the light in here. And then there, so that's my color set on filmmaker. And then we go into brightness. You see I got the OLED brightness pixels turned up to 100. Adjust the contrast. So that adjusts the contrast between the light and dark areas. Higher values intensify the difference. This is where you pick up your detail. This is where you should be able to push a 4K without it breaking whatsoever. So it just, if you want this contrast lower, you can turn it down. It's not really big. It's not that big of a deal. So I like the whole point of high dynamic range is a huge raft of color potential between the lightest light and the darkest dark. So I keep it turned up. I usually keep it between 90 and 100. So black level. Adjust the brightness of dark areas of this screen. The closer to 100, the lighter. The closer to 0, the darker it is. On filmmaker mode, you're going to see how it is. I basically have it right in the middle. I could lighten this up. You're going to lose detail. You see, you start to lose detail. We don't want to lose detail because this was lit to be a darker film. So there we go. We're going to keep it right about in the middle. I like one notch above. Automatic dynamic contrast. This will optimize the contrast settings again based on the image brightness. So you got Dolby Vision working there, and then you've got this, and again, you've got all that dynamic range. Use it. Use it. So you've got the automatic dynamic contrast here. I keep it at medium, a happy medium. Brightness enhancer. This is a technology to improve the contrast and the expression of the foreground background. See this? It analyzes the information of the HDR image. Again, y'all, you have all this power. You have all of this information encoded into this disc that you've never had before. You couldn't do this with a Blu-ray. You could not do this with a DVD because the image will crack and fall apart and look like shit. You can do it with here because you have a high dynamic range color grade. You have all this information stored in a 4K. That's why I say it will always be technically superior. It's all right here. You can push this image without it cracking. Get the most out of your 4Ks. Get the most out of them. Get the most out of your TV. Please, before you go and start attacking people who are doing these restorations and everything else and bashing stuff on reviews, make sure that you know you are getting everything out of your TV. People used to pay me to come and set their TVs up like this. despite the fact that I color grade, color correct, and edit for a living and shoot films, people paid me to come do this. And I'm going to show you right now my settings. You can copy my settings. So peak brightness, brightness enhancer. So right here, you can go for detail. Don't do that. Why do I say that? Because now it might be trying to add artificial detail that's not there. This just makes sure your brightness, your distance in the HDR is there to the best of its ability. So that's what I do there, because this is under filmmaker mode. Takes a minute to wake up. Peak brightness. Again, adjust. This is something you can be done because you have HDR here. You have an HDR grade and a 4K with tons of information, tons of pixels. So you can adjust the maximum brightness to effectively show the brightest light on the screen. Okay? Because what happens is sometimes, because again, filmmaker mode is designed to be watched in pitch black with a very, very bright projector. You got to remember that. A super power bright laser projector in a pitch black dark room. We don't have that. What we do have is a 4K with a shit ton of pixels and information and an HDR grade. So, peak brightness. I keep it at a high. Honestly, you could tinker around with this, but see how that kicks if low. So that's off. See that? Low. Medium. High. I don't like high. High, you can start to cook highlights. Low doesn't do. Medium is the happy place here under filmmaker mode. I don't mess with any of the gamma. And with filmmaker mode, what you do want turned off is all this shit. Any kind of fake processing, the motion eye care, any kind of bullshit like that. All of this stuff. This noise reduction, MPEG noise, all this smooth gradation that makes it like a soap opera. Turn all this shit off. The only thing I leave on is the Real Cinema because it adjusts the frame ratio to what it should be. So that's the only thing I leave on. True Motion, everything else goes off. Super resolution, if you're having trouble with your particular TV or whatever and it's crushing or it's blurry, you can just kind of let this run background. It doesn't really do much. It might just help a little bit in the very back recesses in the dark here. 99% of the time I leave it off or on low. I've never turned it above low. So that's it. That is my filmmaker mode settings. Let me hit play on this for just a second so that it don't go to sleep on me. All right. Yeah, let it play a second so I don't go to sleep. Because I want to take you through my next most popular setting. So you see that's Dolby Vision in filmmaker mode with user settings. Now, here we go. Now watch this. So this is going to be Cinema Home. I probably use this one the most. It's filmmaker in the Cinema Home that I've tweaked. Boom. Now watch. So it went from filmmaker mode. You're down here. It's expecting you to be in the damn dark. But I like it. I like it. And it's a bright room. Remember that. And then here, cinema. So we're kicking this shit up a brighter notch here. Then there's my standard user settings. Just kind of in the middle. Standard. Vivid gonna knock your socks off. Okay? But let's go to my next most used one here is Cinema Home. And let me try to get us something else on the screen here. Takes it a minute to catch back up. Got to go into advanced settings. All right, now you'll see some differences in here. OLED brightness about the same, contrast level, black levels the same, automatic dynamic contrast also low, expression enhancer also at brightness, peak brightness is at high. Didn't touch any of the rest of this stuff, leave all that crap off. Color depth. I got the color turned down a little bit more here. Why? Because it's brighter. All right, and so I can go to my vivid setting if I really want the colors and all that shit. But the overall picture is brighter, so I don't need the color depth to be as high. I usually keep it between 80 and 85. So here we go. So that's at 80. We could crank this thing up. You see 88. Let's take it back down. That's 85. That's 80 where it started. I feel like 85 is about the sweet spot here. None of this other. I don't, the fine tuning, color adjustment again, just set it low. Nothing else is adjusted. White balance. Here's where you see how much it's still, I still have it leaning a little warmer, but half as much as the other, as filmmaker mode. Nothing else is touched. Clarity. Adjust sharpness. Now here, I've got a picture a little bit sharper. This is my personal taste. I don't over sharpen it because it can make it look garbage. But instead of like 5 to 12 or not touched at all, I kick it up to about 20. Again, you want a little bit of difference, so there's no point. Because every movie's going to be different. All the other crap is turned off. And that's it. That is it. It's that simple. So that is my cinema user. So you guys check this out. So that's the cinema user. Let's try to get in here. Let's zoom in on like this part of her shirt here. I'm trying not to get too close because it messes my camera up. That's the cinema home look. That's filmmaker. Cinema home. Filmmaker. Standard. Standard again. Happy medium. Vivid. Blow your socks off. Bright. You want it bright? You really want it bright? I'll go to my vivid settings real quick. I don't use it too often. I'll use it on sports a lot. Because I also have these exact same settings under non-Dolby Vision, under HDR. So I have 4 different settings under that as well. Brightness. 100, again, contrast, black level. But I turn off the automatic dynamic contrast. Why? Because I don't want it to do anything extra to it. It's already blown out. So I turn that off on this one. Expression enhancer, same thing. I could go detail. It just makes it a little bit darker. I keep it off or on brightness. You really want to kick it out, you go brightness. Peak brightness is turned off in this mode. Nothing else is on. Color depth, a little bit less. Nothing is touched in the fine tuning. Clarity. Now here is where, because you've got such a vivid picture, you can introduce noise because it's a little sharper. So now I have a little bit of light noise reduction. MPEG noise reduction is not really going to do much. I mostly keep it off. I'm not really sure. I probably just clicked around and got that on. Smooth gradation. This is the one time I will turn this on low because, again, you have a lot of noise introduced in a very, very vivid setting. Real cinema still on, so you have to maintain the aspect ratio. Bullshit on that soap opera true motion stuff. And that's it. So that is, but I'm going to tell you, I probably stay with this mode most of the time, or my filmmaker mode. I prefer my cinema mode, cinema home user settings personally, over the filmmaker mode, but that's up to you. I'll put the settings for both. All right, let's just look at a little bit of it, shall we? We're going to stay on my cinema home mode for now. My son's in there eating food that smells really good. All right. If you want a little wider shot, I'll do this real quick with the filmmaker mode. So this is a wider shot here. Filmmaker mode. Now remember, I've tweaked both of these settings from the base. Filmmaker, cinema home. Filmmaker, cinema home. And 99% of the time I'm going to use one of these, and we're going to continue with cinema home. Because I watch a lot of horror movies, and I have it set up for that, and I have a lot of light in here in this room. And most of you are going to have way more light than a completely pitch black movie theater. I should also mention that I calibrated my TV. Make sure you calibrate your TV. Look up your TV settings on how to make sure it's properly calibrated before you go setting everything. It should be mostly calibrated fine out of the box. There should be ways to test it, run it, let it set it, and go forward. Try to find some different parts. Go back to crazy old guy here. I forget his name. Just blank. Now, here's I've seen this part here, where there's talk about how the yellow shows up on them, and it's strong. But my guess is they were bounce boarding the hell out of that light, here on their feet. It's hitting them. See how it's all hitting from this direction over here? See how she's a little yellow, yellow, a little bit more yellow, and then his feet are a little bit more yellow. My guess is the sun's out, number one, but they're bounce boarding the hell out of some light that direction. And you can artificially take that out with a color grade, which Screen Factory did on the Blu-ray. But that's probably not how it looked. So let's have a look at it. Now let's see what happens here. So filmmaker mode tones it down. It toned it down for sure, but it flattened it. It made it a boring image. That's a more lifelike image. Standard is again a happy medium, tones it down even more, but I can promise you this is not what it looked like on the day. Vivid also just way overcooks it, the grits here. If I had to guess, it's somewhere between these two, what it looked like on the day. And you're never going to get that exactly perfect, but there you go. You can, but if you alter to try to take it out, which Screen Factory did, try to get some of this yellow gold hue out in the Blu-ray with their color grade, if you do that, then it is changing it from what it looked like. And again, that's just a preference thing. Let's try to get into the dark here. That looks so good out there. That's crazy. Let's get one where he's not covering his face. Okay, so we have a really dark shot right here. This is on my cinema home look. Let's see what happens when we turn it on Filmmaker and here in a bright room. So that's Filmmaker. Yeah, it makes him darker, right? Because it's taking all that out. That just adds a little bit. Filmmaker, my cinema home settings. Standard. And if you want vivid, you can crank it up. That's what I mean. You can push it. If you want it bright, there he is. But I'm going to probably stick with my cinema home because that's Filmmaker. Cinema home settings. This is another good spot. We got a bright color in the dark here. Let's see. Trying to get to where you can see her face and the outfit. She went dry with the toothpaste. There we go. This is what I was waiting on. All right, so we have her. It's dark. We have her green jacket. She's got no light in front of her, so this is just ambient light for the most part on their face. You can tell that she is lit from back here, behind her this way, because you can see it. You can see the damn light shining there. So this is my cinema home. Filmmaker. Filmmaker. Cinema home. Filmmaker. Cinema home. Standard. If you want to blow it out, there's vivid. Standard. Cinema home. Filmmaker. Like I said, I find that my cinema home is like that happy medium. It's got a little more life and color and brightness than Filmmaker and better than Standard, but it's nowhere near vivid. It doesn't look fake and overprocessed and everything. It's that sweet spot. So that's where I stay most of the time. It's usually between those two. Sometimes it's fun to kick a comedy up to vivid and just blow that shit out. But that is Cinema Home, Filmmaker. And again, it's just a matter of preference. I like that one the best. Once you have it, so I go through and I set all 4 of these for movies with Dolby Vision. Then I go and put a movie without Dolby Vision in, and I do the exact same settings to the 4, okay? To 4 different settings. Now I have 4 possible choices for every movie with Dolby Vision, and I have 4 possible choices for every movie without 4K without Dolby Vision. So somewhere in there, I'm going to find the perfect setting. Even if I have to, in 99.9% of the time, I don't have to do individual tweaks. I can just pick one of those. And usually for me, it's Filmmaker or the Cinema Home. And I can pick one of those, and it's going to be perfect for the movie. And it's going to enhance your viewing. It's going to maximize what you get out of the 4K. And it is going to maximize what you get out of your TV. And so instead of like running to be like, this 4K is dark, a 4K should never be too dark. Never, ever, ever. You have the power. There is the information in that disc. It is encoded in there for you to push it to the brink without it cracking your image. So, like, it's not an out of the box thing. A movie, like I said, a low budget horror movie from 1980. There's no way that you can expect the exact same setting to be perfect for that and perfect for the newest Marvel movie. or they are great for Friday the 13th Part 1, and also great for Jaws, and also at the same time great for Anchorman or whatever. They're vastly different in how they shot them, all that kind of stuff. So, have these settings, it's going to give you a lot of choices. So, all right, we're going to take a look a little bit more and get off here. I'm in love with these outside rain scenes. This is just beautiful. Outside rain at night with these looking through the window with a book. Just love it, man. I just love how this looks. Because, always go out and explore the noise in the rain in your nightgown. Oh, wait, I want to get to this part. Here we go. I love the yellows and the red slickers here coming in and out of the darkness. This is fantastic. I mean, this is great lighting in this movie with the budget they had. It's atmospheric. It shows up. The 4K shows it off. And again, this is one that I heard how bad it is, how dark it is. So just wanted to say that. Get the settings out here. I'm going to give you a quick glimpse of part 2 because I think it's one of the best 4Ks I've ever seen. This is the Blu-ray. Everything's just been muted in this color grade. Which is fine. If that's the aesthetic that you like, that's totally cool. By the way, on here on HDR or non HDR sources, this is my most color rich setting. So this doesn't even have HDR. This is my most color rich setting. So this is the most color rich and vibrant that you're going to get. Oh, here's this same part. Very, very muted skin tones. Not that they look bad. I don't hate the way this looks, but it is very dull. And see, what they've done is they've traded basically draining out all the color. They've drained out, and this is as colorful setting as I have on non-HDR, non-Dolby Vision. And it's just very drained out. It does, I mean, you can still see where it was a different color on his feet. Part of it's just his damn feet. Same thing here at her tan lines and all this kind of stuff. But you really grade out all the green. You really grade it out. You really grade out all the white. And you had to introduce a lot of blue and a lot of desaturation to get that. Again, though, it's an aesthetic. I don't hate it. I don't think it looks bad. I just don't think it looks like what they intended it to look like. And I've seen it all before. I'm old enough to have lived through VHS, change over to DVD. I'm old enough to, before really VHS got to be popular, to seeing it on VHS, to DVD, and shitty TV quality. I want now, as a filmmaker, I want the best possible version that it can be, and I want it to look like what they envisioned it like on that day. Because I promise you, out there in the bright sunlight and everything else, they probably didn't envision it all washed out. But I will never get rid of my Blu-ray. I like, on some things, I will never get rid of my Blu-rays. Like this set, I love it. I'll never get rid of it. There's stuff that I just love. If you want to return to that aesthetic, it is cool, man. I'm not going to be a big VHS collector. Been there, done that, lived through all that. I get the ones that mean a lot to me, keep them, keep a way to watch them in case I want to. I love the art on them and all that, but 4K is the way. It's the way. Blu-ray is a very digital space. That's the main thing I don't like about it. It's a very digitally manipulated thing, and I prefer the 4K from film restorations because you get much more filmic look. I'm trying to run to this. You definitely lose a lot of detail in here. They're very mushy and soft in some spots. Talk about mushy and soft. There is the exterior diner scene. If you notice, you don't see quite the detail. It doesn't look bad. Again, it doesn't look bad. You just don't see quite the detail or vibrance. And when you go in here, it's very different. Again, though, not bad. I don't think it looks bad. And I will keep these forever. See this? I don't think this looks bad. I don't think it looks bad at all. It's what you can't tell here is very soft. It is much softer. It is much, much softer. And that's what happens when they kind of bleed out some of the color too, and all that. You can kind of get a softer overall look. And it's definitely been brightened. Very big time. Very, very, very big time. Overly brightened. Look at this. She's like fire engine red right here by comparison to the others. And this is with all color bled out of this. That leads me to the other issue with Blu-rays. They knew they're all in a digital space, and they knew a lot of people were not going to be able to see them, not watch them in pitch black darkness. So digitally, they brightened the shit out of most all Blu-rays. They brightened them to death. So you're used to watching Blu-rays, they're artificially brightened. And so that's what you're used to. You're not used to looking at honest to God, high resolution filmic quality in a space like this. So this is so artificially brightened right here. It is crazy because I don't have anything turned on this TV. And yet, I mean, it blows out the 4K because it's artificially brightened. That's not what it looked like. And that causes you to get a lot more problems in it. A lot more noise. Look at all this. You get all this and you get soft edges and a loss of detail in exchange for brightness. Look at that. That, when you really look at it, that looks rough and you lose detail. Look at that. That is in exchange for brightening. I mean, when you really look at it, look, you can tell it like got hot on her chin, and there's no light there. So, just an aesthetic thing. I still love my Blu-ray set. I keep it forever. Friday Part 2. See my cinema home. Filmmaker mode. Cinema home, filmmaker. We're going cinema home. Like right off the bat, you know this is going to look good. How good that looked. I'm telling you guys, this is one of the best 4Ks I've ever seen. That shot, right? Well, not the booty, but I mean, this thing is crazy town. It looks so good. But this guy's hand right here, when it comes in, look at this. Look at this. Look how clear that looks. It looks like looking into a clean window. You can literally see the dirt in his colors in his hair and the pores of his fingers. That is just an insane amount of clarity and detail. Now this is my cinema home mode with a little more saturation. I could always turn it down if you don't like it. If it's very slightly tuned up. There's filmmaker mode. Mine, filmmaker mode. We can even leave it in filmmaker mode. And it still looks great. We can go back to those other scenes in filmmaker mode. Now, I like my setting better here. That's filmmaker mode, tweaked. That's my setting. I feel like it looks a little more natural. That looks a little warm. I like mine better. But they both look good. Let me get that off there. All right, let's see if we can get some darker spots in this thing. I think this looks so damn good. And I know the camera recording the TV isn't even doing this justice. Please remember that. It's just reference. This is going to look even better in person. Anything I show you is going to look better in person. It's not a camera recording a TV, then being encoded, then uploaded and processed and compressed by YouTube. So if it still looks even remotely good, it's going to blow your mind in person. Also, the camera recording the screen has the tendency to overblow highlights just a little bit. So remember that. And maybe slightly saturate things more than they are in person. Which goes back to the Blu-ray is actually as saturated as it can get, and this situation is going to saturate it even more, so it still looks that faded. I've lit people out by a campfire at night. It's not as easy as you think, and to make it look good is not as easy as you think. All right, so we're back from the TV over there. I know it's a lot to take in. I know it is like information overload. But in the end, it's really just about the settings. And if you tweak these settings, just save them. All you got to do is do this and save it one time. Then you've got multiple choices that you can pick from to find just the right setting for what you are watching. And now I end up with the default of mine. It's probably on my cinema home setting 75% of the time, or maybe 70% of the time, 25% of the time on filmmaker. Actually, it's almost always on cinema home or filmmaker. Rarely do I had to use the vivid. I pop the vivid on sometimes when it's a comedy and I just want to blow it out of here. But other than that, that is what I use most of the time. And every now and then, maybe you need to tweak within there a little bit. Not much. This should give you so much more of a leg up. And try those settings before you go melt down and say that the 4K is too dark. It should never be. There is so much information in here. You should be able to lighten this thing forever, man, without it cracking. That is a big advantage of 4K over Blu-ray. All of the information is in there for you to do with, and to improve with without it cracking. And that's kind of what I wanted to go here, because we're like, there's a lot of work that goes into these, but like, you're not going to get the same look. You can't use the same setting for like The Searchers or Tombstone that you use for Nightmare on Elm Street or Halloween or whatever. They're just vastly different movies. They're vastly different ways that they were shot, lit, colored, all that kind of stuff. So one to rule them all is unlikely. This will help you have at least a little bit of a range, and then you can tweak within there if you need to, and hopefully this will show you how to do it. Again, ask questions. I will try to put the stuff down in the comments, because otherwise you're trying to write it down as you go. But it's a long video, so I want to get out of here. But that's what I got for you today, and I hope you enjoyed this. If you found this helpful, if you like to hang out, this is a different video. Normally we do all kinds of physical media news, 4K reviews, big lists, rankings, recommendations. I love doing those. We do it all here because I'm a working filmmaker. I love talking movies. You guys know all this if you follow me. If you're new here, we do all this. So like, subscribe, hang around. And if you want to help support what we do here, you can join at my YouTube channel. But I'd push you over to Patreon because I can do a lot more there, uncensored videos over there. And you don't have to worry about copyright and all that. So we can do a whole lot more. But no matter where you join and support the channel, you get your name and lights on every single video, behind the scenes looks at my filmmaking, special members only videos, and so much more. And everything goes back into the channel. I pour my heart into it. I'm standing up doing this video because I can't sit down and do it, but I want to talk to you guys about movies. And until next time, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.